If you happen to have kids or even know someone who has kids, I highly recommend the new musical children's picture books by Emma Pornell Music. Emma is an author and musician of over 20 years dedicated to emotional understanding for kids and adults. Not only that, she has a science background also of over 20 years. Emma has spent countless hours researching the beneficial psychological and physiological effects of listening to instrumental music on the decreasing the anxiety level of children to increase their creative performance. Listen to her companion piano music releases alongside the reading of both of her children's picture books available. Gentle Dragons, Healing and Dealing with Emotions and Feelings, and also Tween the Cat, a story of gratitude and compassionate attitude. Both are themed around assisting children develop healthy emotional habits and positive attitudes towards life and others. Emma also includes full-color, captivating illustrations, also done completely by her on every page. Find both these books available on Amazon Print and ebook through Emma Pornell's author page or via her personal website. Alright, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Spreaker. If you need a podcasting hosting platform or you want to get monetized, visit Spreaker. I've used Spreaker, they're amazing. And you want to monetize your podcast, all you need to do is click on the link below in the description to get your free trial of Spreaker. All right, Mathew, Jaidev, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing good, Stephen. How are you today?
Good. I've enjoyed your music on Insight Timer as well. I like meditating to it. It's quite relaxing. Are you a musician?
Yeah, I've done many things in my life, but when I come back to the heart of who I am, it seems like music seems to be the heart of my true calling.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been on Insight Timer for?
I believe I joined in January of 2018, so it'll be a little over three years now.
Mm-hmm. And I've tried some of your course, Healing Sound Through Voice. Is that correct?
Yeah, the power of sound healing with voice. Yep.
Tell us a bit more about that and what inspired you to come up with that.
Okay. Well, yeah, the course itself is called The Power of Sound Healing with Voice, and I was inspired to create that. I'll give you a little bit of my backstory. So when I was a young child, I was very shy and introspective and introverted and very sensitive to the outside world. And I realized, I didn't realize until I was an adult that I had repressed a lot of my emotions. And it wasn't until I had come into my more of deeper relationships in life where I realized I was little behind in my emotional maturity and my ability to express myself. And I didn't even realize that I had any musical ability until I was 20 years old. My younger brother asked for a guitar for Christmas one year, and just watching him play, it awoke something in me. And so ever since then, that was almost 20 years ago, I realized that expressing myself through music was the way for me to get in touch with my emotions. And along that journey, maybe about 5 years ago, I got a Kundalini Yoga teacher certification, and I learned a lot about the power of the breath and chanting mantras as different tools, also to not only relax and center oneself, but also to move this emotional energy through us. And so about 5 years ago is when I started really tapping into my voice and learning how our voices can be used as exactly that, this vehicle for processing emotion, trauma, and any type of energy that may be still or stagnant in us. And that's what led me to the course a few years ago. I realized, wow, I've gone so deep in myself to uncover so much of my challenges in my life, and my voice and expressing myself through my voice was a huge part of my healing. And I realized that that was a gift that not only I had to share, but I started noticing this about people around me too, that this is an area I could share that gift with others. And I've had great feedback from others that have confirmed that. So it's been very rewarding, and I'm grateful to have a platform like Insight Timer to, connect with people like yourself from all over the world and realize that we can help each other by sharing our journey of healing with one another.
Yeah, I like meditating too with sound healing. It's quite good for the brain too, Matthew. No, thank you for publishing that work as well on Insight
Yeah.
Timer. And other than that, beside meditation, what are you doing with your day-to-day life?
Well, last year I got hired as a teacher at a middle school here. I live in Savannah, Georgia, in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and I teach them audiovisual arts.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only did I have this background in music and self-expression, but I also went to the art college here to learn. Initially, I wanted to go there to learn how to create soundtracks for films. And they did have a sound design program, but I switched over to motion media design because they didn't have as many courses related to composing music. But having that background in the arts and the music, I realized I was very qualified to teach these things to children, or to anybody really, but the opportunity came to teach it to the children. And so that's what I've been doing for this past year for my main work. Prior to that, I had been doing freelance design work for almost a decade since I graduated the art college, doing all sorts of multimedia type branding and client consultations to help them with their market their brands as well. And right now I'm actually working on another course. I'm just getting started on it. It's called the 12 Keys of Human Health and Wellness. And I want to go beyond just the voice as one aspect of our wellness and tune into, really, it's like my anecdotal experience of things that I have discovered along the way. And I like to, now having a platform like Insight Timer, put them out there to the world to kind of get some feedback to say, is this true for others as well? Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping to work on that this summer, now that I have the summer off from school.
Yeah, look, I'm a musician too, Matthew. Music's been hit very hard because of the pandemic as well. Has it been like that in the United States? They always cut the music classes.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. So it is a worldwide situation, and that's the interesting thing about the pandemic. It's been such a stressful shift for so many people, but in a way, it helps see that we're more connected than we realize, and the world's not as big as maybe we once imagined. And so, to answer your question, here in the Savannah area, for probably up until about 3 or 4 months ago, it was pretty much the normal day-to-day life had very much changed, and the social environment had very much changed, and many people were going more into isolation and spending time with families and themselves. And I could tell that it was challenging for many people. Me, my nature, I tend to be more of a lone wolf, I guess you could say, in my life. Like I said, from my childhood, I'm used to spending time alone. So in that regard, I didn't feel too affected by it. But regarding the music, there was very little live music opportunities. And I have never been a huge music performer, more of a writer, and like I said, for my self-expression. But I did find I started to miss those opportunities to perform live, and to, there's something about sharing. I think as an innate human quality, we want to share with one another, but talking about music, it just seems to have this quality that can really unite people and awake us to deeper energies and awarenesses. And I really feel many people were missing that in this past year for sure.
Of course, every time there's a global or an economical crisis, music is the first to be cut, usually.
Really?
Yeah. In Australia as well. And that's a shame, Matthew.
Yeah.
Music is fun.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, based on what I have described as the healing component, and then also like you, it's fun. It's part of gatherings and social activities, and some of the things I talk about in my course is also the aspect of, to me, it's music, song, and dance are some of the most innately human aspects of being a human. And it is ironic, that the powers that be, those that run the systems and the governments, those messages seem to have some kind of disconnect, it seems, in the way that in the grander scheme of things. And so I look back to maybe a lot of inspirations from more tribal communities, and it seems like that is almost the heart of the way that they come together, is through story, song, and dance. And yeah, to me, it's like everything we had mentioned, and it really, it's a social. At the end of the day, it's what I think it's what makes us stand out from other mammals and creatures, is that ability to come and celebrate and vibrate in that musical quality.
Mm. I've been listening to a lot of native flute music before bed. It's quite relaxing as well. I like a lot of Tibetan singing bowls to meditate. What's your meditation style that you practice frequently?
Well, I'll say for the longest time, just meditation in general has been my most consistent practice, whether you want to call it a wellness practice or a spiritual practice. But for me, it's just sitting in silence and monitoring myself through my breathing, and seeing that based on the training I went through with Kundalini, and it gave me that heightened awareness of my breath, it made me realize in my normal day-to-day life prior to discovering meditation, how often I would get caught up in my thoughts, and I would, like that phrase, over analysis paralysis, where I would sometimes start my day and I'd wake up and I would just kind of lay there, or I'd sit on the edge of my bed and I'd be mulling over things and realize, 20 minutes have gone by and I haven't even, got myself moving. I'm still in the thought world. And so meditation, it was really a great gift for me, for the way that my mind seems to operate. It gave me a space for all those thoughts to just flow and to move through me. And I would say it's probably been maybe about 7 or 8 years since I've dedicated myself to pretty consistent daily practice. We all go through waves, with different things we commit to. And I, over the last couple of months with my school schedule, I got away from the practice. But the last weekend, actually, I started getting back into it heavily, and averaging just like about 20 minutes in the morning. And really, it's one of the first things I do. I'll wake up, I'll get some water, put some lemon in it, drink that, use the restroom, and then I'll go sit down for about 20 minutes. And I'll just close my eyes and I'll breathe. And I just sit in the stillness. And to add to that, where a lot of the vocalizing came from, I would notice after around that 15 to 20 minute threshold, my body would start to want to stir and move. And I would start to honor that and say, okay, there's some energies that have gotten activated, and I'm going to just kind of, as the observer, I was honoring the process. And I would start to notice kind of like the spine would want to move, and, the body wants to find comfort. So I would start stretching, and it would be like a nice precursor from stillness into movement. And then from that light stretching, I noticed sounds were wanting to come, and the sound would help me go deeper into my stretches and the releases. So in a way, those three components of stillness with meditation, the stretching, and the sound were like a wonderful companions to one another to help me process just all that we take on in the human experience.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, actually, lately. If I've done a chakra practice, I just get this weird energy feeling as well. I can't explain it. Don't know. Weird.
Like, have you noticed any like localization, or is it just like more in the mind or certain parts of the body? How
More
could you?
up here, when you get like, I don't know if your blood pressure goes up, but just weird sometimes.
Yeah. No, well, it's funny, Stephen, that this world of energy, even to me, I've gone very deep in exploring it and exploring different existing pathways like
Mm.
Kundalini yoga and meditating and the sound healing. And the world of energy still feels very mysterious to me. And I feel like even some of the reasons like I went into Kundalini was to get a deeper understanding. And even
Mm.
some of my teachers couldn't answer some of my questions that I had about energy. And so to me, it feels like such an unexplored territory. And there's so much to discover in the world of energy. And if there is, for me, like anything to be excited about in life, it is to be in that exploration, to understand it more intimately, so that we can ultimately have a better understanding of ourselves and one another and the world we live in. And I feel like having that heightened awareness, it can only make our lives improved by just understanding, because I feel like through understanding comes the wisdom, and through the wisdom gives us the power and responsibility to
Mm.
live the most fulfilling lives.
Yeah, it's more if I've opened up my third eye and then haven't closed it properly.
Mm.
Just maybe later on in the day. Yeah, I've noticed that stuff that I can't explain, Matthew.
Would you feel like, since you've been experiencing this, Stephen, it's more like intuitive type feelings, or you're just sensing things?
More sensing.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
then,
every day.
yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, even the idea of chakras, I've gone really deep into trying to understand them, and I've come to my own personal conclusion about them, that they seem to be in the realm of philosophy, because that's the challenge with this world of energy, is because what you sense and what I sense and what the next person senses, like you say, it's very hard to put the words to it. So it is a challenge to put a common language to what we are experiencing, and I think that's maybe where the world of art and music and expression can be helpful to get a closer glimpse at these feelings and these senses. But even like the idea of the chakras, I have a lot of people will, in Insight Timer, for instance, will, ask me similar questions or start similar commentaries. And I really have to bring it from that place of philosophy. And I say, well, I've studied a lot, but I can't say I really understand it any better. All I do is I feel like I'm regurgitating much of what I've read, and so much of what I read, it's definitely fascinating. But yeah, I feel like we all have our own unique experience and relationship to, I guess, understanding and sensing these things. But Kundalini, what I liked about Kundalini yoga, for instance, is it brought a little bit more of a practical understanding by relating the chakras to different glands we have in our body. So kind of like left brain, right brain, spirit, science. That helped me a little bit more, like find the pragmatism and the practicality in trying to understand these spiritual realms.
Spirit guides. Are you into the whole spirit guides?
Well, for some time, like I'll say, when I first started in this spiritual exploring, probably in 2012, my girlfriend at the time, her and I, we explored Reiki together, and we got attuned to Reiki, and our teachers would tell us about, your guides are here, and call in your angels and things like that. And to me, I was open to the ideas, but I never felt like I had that real visceral experience with it. I said, okay, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I have a book right over here on my shelf called Journey of Souls, which is written by Michael Newton. It's a wonderful story, a book by a hypnotherapist. He's regressed his patients back to memories of being in their mother's wombs. And then he tells them, what do you remember before that? And the whole book is all these accounts of people talking about the spiritual world or the afterlife and the guides and these things. So I'm definitely interested in these ideas, but I personally can't say that I've had that depth of intuition or sensing of guides. And some of my days when I feel more despondent or less upbeat about life, if I feel down about things, I will find that sometimes having faith in those bigger ideas, just like that idea of faith, can help me return to openness about some of these ideas. But in my own world, I guess the closest thing I could say is like I do like the energy of animals. And so when I'll be like looking at my backyard and I'll see a bird fly in or a cat or anything like that, sometimes I'll go online and I'll say, what does that animal represent, energetically? So I'm open to the idea. And if we talk about things in terms of energy, I do believe everything has its own unique energy. And there's another aspect I'll touch on real quickly, that this idea of reflection, like what comes into our field of awareness as a facet of ourself, as a reflection of us. So I've read and explored different theories and philosophies about that, and that's always fascinating. Like even you and I, Stephen, like sitting here, if we believe in this oneness of by all living on this planet Earth, that we are also reflections of one another by being humans, by musicians, and interested in this world that Insight Timer provides to us. So it's an interesting dialogue for sure to explore, in this idea of reflection and the world out there that we perceive and the world within. I've become very fascinated in trying to find just an understanding and a language of this. And my perception of, like we said, the powers that be, the systems, the governments, the schools, I realize many of these topics have been just kind of taken off of the table. And so unless many of us go on our own personal explorations, it seems like there's not a common school or not a common place to go and just discover these things, unless you're surrounded by a community of people that are open to these topics or have had some sort of practical experience, and they're open to share with one another. And I do find, like, you will find those groups, and it's always rewarding and fascinating to at least be a witness to what have other people experienced, because I feel like individually we hold a partial truth, but when we come together, we fill in the gaps, we create the whole truth. So I feel like that's the beauty of a community, is each one of us has a valuable perspective that we can add to the collective whole.
Exactly. And lucid dreaming, what's your opinion on that? Because that's an interesting one too.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I've actually activated an interest in lucid dreaming. I feel like I maybe have had one or two lucid dreams in my whole life, but I've definitely had periods of my life where I've gone deep into dream journaling. And I have found that the more that I would get in the habit of writing my dreams down, that I would tend to have much deeper and vivid dreams. And so there has been this fascination with me about this idea of being able to control our dreams and to also work out scenarios in our personal lives in the dream world. I've read all sorts of fascinating things that people have mastered things in their dreams, and then when they're awake, they can do the same thing they did in their dreams because they spent all that extra time. And I think that's really fascinating. And then just on the topic, you kind of remind me, if you've ever seen the film Inception by Christopher Nolan, where he basically presents the idea that what if this reality is a dream, and we're all, facets of one another's dream. And that's just a whole other rabbit hole of conversation. But I definitely would say, if you use the word consciousness explorer, I would relate and have an affiliation with that phrase or title, because I'm just very fascinated by the unknown, and fascinated by the possibilities that maybe we haven't tapped into yet. And maybe they are dormant possibilities. Maybe we can all be like, the Buddha or the Christ or these avatars. Maybe there is a spiritual or many spiritual paths that can unlock or awaken these abilities. But I do also believe in the power of faith and belief. Like I said, just believing that something is possible, I think, is the first step to manifesting or actualizing it.
Is there bad energy out there, Mathew?
That's a good topic to explore too. So in my past, I've just in the journey of spirituality, you'll read things like, oh, you need to do this protection, or protect yourself from bad energies or bad spirits and things like that. And so for a while, even when I was younger, I was very before I even knew about what spirituality was even a word, I was very into ghost stories and paranormal, and those would be the type of books I would explore in the libraries when I was younger. And so, yeah, I'd read like the scary story books and the ghost stories, and that stuff would very much, terrify me as a young boy. But I still felt an interest to explore that. And so I think as a youth, I would be more aligned with like the good and bad. And we grew up, my family was a Lutheran background with Christianity, but it was never really like part of our lifestyle where we promoted, angels and demons and devils and gods. So it was kind of more just for me to explore on my own. But as I've gone along this journey, on my own journey in life, I'm currently in a men's group online. It's called Men on Fire. And it talks a lot about pain management. And pain management is any of those behaviors that any of us do in life to, basically manage our traumas and our emotional pain, whether it's drinking, smoking, any type of addictive drugs, sex, masturbation, pornography, even exercise, meditation, spirituality can become addictive. Anything that we turn to instead of fully feeling what's going on within us. And I feel like in that category, in that realm, that's maybe where this idea of bad energy has come into the human collective. And I know because I've had relationships where some of my partners, they've had real challenges with their pain management, and that their challenges leaked into my world, and I would find myself imbibing in their pain management just by nature of association or even with friends. And it's easy, I guess what I've learned is it's easy to go into judgment. It's easy to go into judging something external. And I feel like this is part of that dialogue about, us and them and the external and internal. Like once we start seeing something as separate from us, I think it's easier to judge it. And to judge it is where like that idea of a lot of misunderstanding. And that's where I think a lot of discriminations come from, like all the isms and sexisms and all these things. And so at the end of the day, I don't know if I would say that there is bad energy, but we can definitely tell when you're like, if we talk about energy, when you're in the presence of someone who has an energy that energizes you, uplifts you, makes you feel good, makes you feel confident or comfortable or safe, versus others who just feel like they might harm you, or they feel unstable, or you can sense their anger or their emotion, and they feel heavy, and you might just not be able to be around them. So if we want to qualify it like that, I could see, where that energy, good and bad, could come from. But I've started to shift my mindset over the years to more of seeing people in that, dealing with the way that we all deal with our different pains. And so I use that term of pain management and seeing that really it's just how we perceive things. Somebody, what we could see is bad, we might not see what they're really going through on the inside. And then that awareness could bring us much more compassion to help shine a light and say, oh, wow, like I really feel for that person. And what once seemed bad, we might take on a whole new perspective with.
Have you heard of things like a Ouija board?
Yeah.
Those are like, I would not touch those things.
No. Do you feel like a superstition about it?
I think I've seen some YouTube videos of kids play with it and just weird things happen.
Yeah. I've had that mindset before too, Stephen, where I was like, it's that unknown, I think there's something about the unknown that it can be scary, but it's also like captivating at the same time. And I'll tell you this, like in Savannah, Georgia, I didn't realize it when I moved here, but it has an affiliation called the most haunted city in the South. It was founded, I think, in the early 1700s, and many of the original buildings and structures are still standing. And so we have a whole tour business in town that gives ghost tours and takes people into, quote, haunted spaces and whatnot. And I think when I first moved here, I was attracted to that. Like I said, it was that youth of me and reading the ghost stories and the paranormal. But I've lived here almost 13 years now, and maybe I had one experience that was kind of unexplained, but I don't feel like I've ever had what I would say was a haunted experience. And I've been in buildings where friends, their business was giving these tours, and they would be exploring the Ouija board. And I believe even a girlfriend of mine in the past, we had played around with one before. And I don't know. Like I said, it's easy to be conclusive about things, but I feel like so much is based on our personal experience, and also, who we're around, who influences us. It kind of goes back to nature versus nurture. And so I feel like a lot of superstitions are encouraged through, story, and through, like, if your parents or someone in your family told you, oh, don't use those Ouija boards, you're going to, bring a demon into the house, you're going to carry that with you through your life. It is maybe your first imprint or impression about what a Ouija board is. But even as an adult, watching stuff on YouTube and seeing others' experiences, yeah, it's hard to tell, what is real, what is fabricated. And I also believe, like we talked about energy, that each one of us have a much more powerful and potent energy than we really realize. And I do believe in these ideas of, like, maybe telepathies or ability to, when they say, like, someone as a house has a poltergeist, I've kind of come to the personal idea that maybe it's just that person or a person in the home has such an intense emotional energy. Maybe it is like trauma or pain that somehow it's affecting the environment, and that could be a cause of what we describe as, like, poltergeist or hauntings or things like that. But like I said, these topics are great because there's so many sides to explore, but it's so challenging to be conclusive about, like, what is the real reality.
It's stuff I would not play with, in case you piss something off as well. You get young teenagers laughing and, making a joke out of it, and then bad stuff happens.
Yeah, real quick to finish on that, you just reminded me of the idea of bringing an intention to an experience, and you're right. Like, when we go into any experience with kind of that, oh, we're just fooling around, or who cares what happens, or kind of like a disrespect. Yeah, I feel like it would be more akin to attract that energy, but I really do have a part of me that believes in this idea of sacred, and so I feel like you potentially, or I, or anyone could go into an experience like that and bring that sacred intention to bring that, what I would say, like, your heart and energy, to bring the heart into it. And will that stop, like, a scenario from occurring or not? It's, like I said, it's hard to say, but I believe that could be the flip side to those scenarios where we have that fear energy of something bad could happen. Is, I believe the heart is more powerful than the mind.
It was in Jimmy Barnes's autobiography, the singer. They were playing with a Ouija board and one of the girls got possessed, and a doctor went to see her, and doctor couldn't find anything wrong, and then they never played with it ever again. Stuff can't explain.
Yeah. You just remind me, there was a TV show I used to love watching as a young boy too, called Unexplained Mysteries. And it was all about these type of things, and yeah, I don't know why, I was just always fascinated by it, the unexplained. And I think there's a part in all of us that it wants to know the deeper side of life, or the unexplored side of life, but perhaps some of the dogmas of our, like we say, our upbringings or religions, I think can sometimes bring a fearful mindset into exploring the unknown.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, just when we think we understand our reality, then you read an article or you watch a video or you talk to somebody, and it can bring a whole new energy in. Like, so here's an experience that, now that I'm remembering, my last girlfriend, I spent the night at her house, and in the middle of the night, I woke up because I had what felt like I was present in my dream. And I felt like a little girl walk up to my arm and place her arm on place her hand on my arm. And I woke up and I made some noise, like, and my girlfriend's like, what? And I told her what happened. And she's like, don't scare me like that. But I said, it felt so real. Like, I felt like there was someone in the room. I felt like a little girl. I don't know why. I sensed her. And so, yeah, that would be like an example of an unexplained experience. And was I dreaming? Maybe. was I dreaming in such a way that I recreated the exact room that I was in and everything, possibly. But yeah, it definitely felt like I was really going through that experience. So yeah, it's like you said, weird. There's a lot of weird and supernatural and unexplained facets to the human experience. And that kind of reminds me of like Aboriginals. They talk a lot about the dreaming. And so that gives me like this faith that there is more out there than we can understand. And maybe when we're in the right state of consciousness, you can experience some of these things in a safe way.
Yeah. Have you ever had? I've had quite a few dreams that felt so real, Mathew.
Like you're describing like lucid dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like, Stephen, you haven't tapped into ability to conjure up lucid dreams at will, or they kind of happen when they happen?
They happen when they happen.
Yeah. Have you feel like a desire though to try to instigate them or bring them on?
No.
No. Okay.
If I've had a good night's sleep, I'll wake up and I was like, what was that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Like I find in recent years, I don't know why, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, I've been tossing and turning a lot at night and I haven't been getting a real deep rest, but it seems to be a great correlation that when I have a deep rest, those are when those like really vivid, deep dreams come as well. I imagine it's like they say the REM, the deep state of sleep. You were talking about brain waves. I've done a little bit of research into binaural beats, and they say that there's like alpha, theta, beta, and gamma. There's different ones, delta, and that when your brain waves get into a certain, might be theta or beta waves, that's kind of when you can go into that deep, that the sleep is deep enough that you're able to go into that almost like shamanic state of consciousness, either in waking life, or that might be where we go in the dream world when we go to sleep, to be able to perceive, like you said, a hyper reality.
Tarot cards.
Yeah, I actually have some myself.
I've never understood them. I've seen them on Insight Timer. What are they meant to be?
Well, from my understanding, the deck that I have is actually from Aleister Crowley, who a lot of people believe he's kind of more of like a magician or a dark magician. But just out of curiosity, those were the deck that I ended up getting just because I was interested to see what it was all about. And I would say his particular deck is so esoteric, and anytime I've tried to like go through the cards and memorize, the meanings and things, and I would look up the definitions as they were described in the booklet that came with it. It just felt so esoteric. It felt very challenging for me as well to even get a grasp on. I don't know how to practically understand these things. I still had a curiosity, and when I watch other people, especially online, do their tarot readings, and I'll see there's such a variety of decks. And so I say, okay, there's some decks that are a little bit more simplistic and easier to interpret perhaps. And so what I've seen about them is, in a way, it's almost, I don't know what came first, like our modern, I actually have some right here, like your modern everyday playing cards, or the tarot deck. And I believe if you go online to research, you could probably see, but they're very correlated, like the suit cards, they're, the diamonds, aces, clubs, and jacks. It's in the same way it's related to the 4 elements in the tarot deck. And they have the wands, the cups, the swords, and the coins or the discs. So each one relates to like earth, air, water, and fire. And then you can go into more of like associations with earth representing more of the material realm, water representing more of the emotional world, air representing more of the mental faculties, and fire more of like the world of action and spirit and passion. And so when I get to that level of it, I say, oh, okay, now I can start to see what people are interpolating from these things. And then I feel like I haven't quite grasped it yet, but I also have a very deep interest in understanding the cosmos and the celestial movements. I've done a lot of research into astrotheology, astro meaning star, theology meaning religion or God. And so the idea of astrotheology describes that our ancestors, as said before electricity was invented or discovered, had so much more availability to the night sky. And like I said, in their groups, what would they do when the sun would go down? If they're not sleeping, they might sit there and just stare at the night sky and start documenting the movements and noticing the patterns. And so, then we have the 12 constellations. And so the 12 constellations, I started to be curious about, is this like the story of a soul's evolution? And each one of us, as we are born from, Virgo, Libra, wherever you're at on the wheel, is this an evolution of your soul? Is there like, is that the idea of old souls, or some horoscopes more of a youthful energy, or some more, evolved than others? I don't know. That's like something I was curious about. And I bring this up because then when you look at the tarot deck, it kind of presents that same thing in what are called the trump cards. There's 22 cards that start outlining like evolution of the soul and where you're at that place in that season of your life or your soul's journey. And so there's a part of me that wants to see, is there a way to connect like the astrology with the tarot? And by understanding both, will you get a better understanding of each of those systems, but ultimately to bring it back to the self, to the human experience. To me, that is, I guess, to bring it all down to the word of meaning. I feel like we're all searching for purpose and meaning, and it's so easy to take on all the meanings that the rest of the world gives us. Even you and me having this conversation, I'm just giving you right now so much of what I've digested from all the books and websites I've experienced, but also my own personal experiences. And you're taking these in and bringing your own meanings from what you've encountered, what you haven't encountered, what your knowledges are that I might not know about. But ultimately, I've come to this also philosophy or conclusion that we are the ones that prescribe meaning to everything. And when we have these type of dialogues, we can bring our, those two perspectives, or however many people are there, bring them into like I said, again, that central place where we can examine and our meanings and say, this means this to me. It might have sentimental value. Maybe somebody gave this to me, but you're like, oh, that's just a rock. That doesn't mean anything to me. So it's amazing how the very insignificant to one person can seem so significant to another. And I feel like that type of mindset is how things like the esoteric and the tarot and astrology can all be explored at very deep levels, just depending on what you can relate to and where do you find a sense of meaning with it. Because I don't think everyone is going to, that's why we have the world that we have with sports and music and politics and all the systems. There's a little place for everyone to find their meaning. And for those of us who are interested in the unknown, it really is a rabbit hole. And I was just reflecting on that today, like how deep I've gone and searching for meaning. And in a way, I got a little depressed on that journey because I realized at some point I didn't know what I was looking for any longer. Because once you open, the door, there's a whole other hallway with all these other doors, and it's almost like the fractal. It's just never ending exploration. So to honor the unknown, I guess, is the gift I have gotten from that journey. Say, you know what, just to honor the mystery, to honor the unknown. And there's some things we might never be able to fathom with our human consciousness.
Exactly. So much stuff out there, Mathew. But it's interesting. Aleister Crowley, he was a Satanist.
Yeah, that was part of, like, for me, when I would read those things, that's what gave me some fear about exploring his ideologies or ideas. But I guess those are when we come up to, like the deeper rooted ideas about what is Satan and what is Satan all about. So I guess that gets you more into like questioning your own theologies and religious beliefs and things. And, like I said, I was raised as a Lutheran, but I never, even going to Sunday schools and to church, I felt like wasn't connecting with me on a deep level. I was just there as a young child, taking it all in, but I never felt that real connection to it. And so over the years, like exploring more of astrology and the cosmos and whatnot, I started seeing these like kind of like etymologies in the words and seeing that, the word Saturn, a planet, is actually like a rendition of where Satan came from. And so Satan or Saturnalia, these are talking about like Capricorn, which is the goat, if you look at astrology. And so there's lots of things I've read that say how like even like the devil, or Lucifer is another name. Lucifer, it actually means light bearer. Luce is light. And he was like so close to God, but he fell from heaven. And so that when you hear these stories, and when you, like I said, for me, it seems like so much of the things that we, like you mentioned earlier, the bad energy that we interpolate is based on how someone else delivered that message to us. And so if our first idea is that, Satan, that's bad, you want to stay away from that, like already that's going to impress us onto us at a young age of, okay, I better stay away from that, because usually there's some sort of like repercussion that comes with it. You're going to go to hell, you're going to burn, there's a lot of fear wrapped up in a lot of these things. And so I guess somewhere along the way, getting back to, Aleister Crowley, I just decided, what, I'm ready to face the fear of that, I'm going to see what it's all about. And so I just started exploring some of those topics and with an open mind, and in a way, well, I'm glad that I did, because it opens me up to making those connections, like I said, to astrology and to like Lucifer, meaning the light bearer, and all these different things. And it gives me new perspectives to look at things, when before I felt like I had such a fixed perspective that wasn't even my own. I was regurgitating someone else's ideas and perspectives. I never had a chance to even develop my own opinion or perspective on it.
Have you ever heard of celebrities selling their soul to the devil to get fame and fortune in Hollywood?
Yeah, probably, I'm sure you as a musician too, this is things that as a musician we get confronted with, the idea of like selling out. And to me that would be like a practical way to explore that statement, is when you go against your own soul, when you go against your own heart and your own authenticity for material gain, or for the celebrity life. To me, I could see like, that's the idea of selling out or selling your soul. And to me, like, maybe that is kind of maybe what the devil could represent, is like really rooted in this material existence of fame and fortune and the big house and, all the abundance and pleasure and all these, what we could even say the 7 sins, if we're going to go down more of like a religious path. And then maybe like God has been given this idea of like the antithesis to that, of the spiritual world, where, we're unattached and there's something waiting for us beyond this plane. It's actually, I've gone really deep into The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, where he talks a lot about how he studied he studied so many cultures and mythologies and religions from around the world. And he realized, they're all kind of telling the same story. And that's where he came up with this hero's journey. It's like a circle. And when you watch like a great movie like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, they're all basically telling the same story, where this ordinary person, the hero or the heroine, gets called to action. They get pulled out of their comfort zone. And then we get thrust into this like challenge. We meet a mentor along the way, like Obi-Wan Kenobi. They give us some sort of tool to help us, like the lightsaber. And then we have to go down into the dark, down and face like our greatest fears. That's like facing the demon or facing the boss or Darth Vader. And then there's this conflict, and so when you look at it as a circle, you see like at the top, you can almost picture it. This is where astrotheology is fascinating. At the top is like the apex of the sun. It's like summertime. But when you come down to the bottom, that's like, the underworld they talk about, or hell, or the dark of the night, the dark night of the soul. And if you look at it like on a celestial clock, like at the top, the sun being June, summer solstice, which is coming up, the bottom being winter solstice, the darkest, the coldest, the night. And so this like metaphor then is that there's this rebirth that comes with spring. And so if we can make it through that dark winter, through that dark night of the soul, through the the hell, that there's something a rebirth, being transformed, a transformation can take place where we come back around, and now we can start at that spring again, and that's like the rising of the sun. And so that is one of like the practical interpretations I really enjoy from astrotheology, is seeing like, wow, the journey of the sun can actually be a beautiful metaphor for not only a day, but a year, but our whole human life and existence. And even in our lives when things feel so dark and in despair and there's no way out, the sun always rises. It's like it's always consistent for us. And I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Zeitgeist that was on the internet years ago. It kind of like talks a lot about conspiracy theories and 9/11 and things like that. But there's one portion of that film I really love where it goes very deep into what I just described about all the ancient mythologies talking about Christ and the Buddha and all these avatars. It's actually talking about the journey of the sun, and how, like, it says when Christ died for 3 days and then was born again. It says in the winter solstice, it's like December 21st, the sun goes to the lowest point in the sky, and for 3 days it never rises any higher in the sky. And then on Christmas, that's when it starts its ascension back up again, which, each day you get a little bit more light. And so it's real fascinating when we read like those parallels, like I said, the parallels between Christianity and the parallels between like the journey of the sun. It makes me feel like a lot of stories have been overlaid over our human experience in attempts for us to find meaning. And when we get to the origin or the core of these stories, I feel like it helps us. It's helped me get a more practical understanding of myself and my emotions and be more relatable. I feel like I can relate more deeply to the whole human experience. And I guess to coin all that up, that's where I have found the value in getting to the root or to the source or to the heart of things, seeing like, okay, where did this begin? Let's go there. And that might give us some more fulfilling and deep answers.
Yeah, it's interesting theology. I mean, if you read the Old Testament of the Bible, it's just all violence and war. It's all it is.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of death and a lot of people taking other people's wives and like whole cities being destroyed, and maybe like before the whole 10 Commandments were created, all the things that were happening for those commandments to be created. A lot of heavy situations.
And the New Testament, I think Jesus actually was facing Satan, and Satan tempted him to join, but he refused. So I don't know, you always think there's always a mythological battle between Jesus and Satan together for some reason.
Well, yeah, I guess kind of like that thread we've been exploring today does seem like, it's like good versus bad and light versus dark. And it just seems to be an ever-present metaphor that, to me, it does. It coins up the human experience, because you and I both know we have good days and we have bad days, and we can't always explain why. You just might wake up one day and you're in a foul mood, or something unexpected happened to you that caused like a loss in your life. You lost a loved one or a relationship, or somebody stole something from you, or, you got in an accident or whatever. But then there's some days where you get unexpected blessings too, where you think of somebody you haven't heard or thought of it, talked to a long time, and they call you, or you get some sort of reward or an opportunity that opens a door for you that just like brings a lot of great happiness into your life. So yeah, like you said earlier, life is weird and there's so many unexpected twists and turns. But at the heart of my understanding, I feel like, like you said, all these mythologies, these stories, I really feel like it's our best attempts as our journey and evolution of humans to explain the human experience. And I think that's why we all love books and movies so much, is because vicariously, when we watch something outside of ourselves, it's actually like speaking to something deeply within us. And that's why I think we really enjoy these great mythologies and great stories, because it's giving us a deeper glimpse at who we all really are.
Exactly.
And I think
Matthew,
that's what we all really want to understand.
I want to say thank you for coming on my podcast today as well.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. I didn't realize we were going to get into such wonderful topics. It's actually, I really enjoyed it, Stephen. I haven't gotten to have this depth of a conversation in a while, so thanks again for the invite.
I'd love to have you back on again. And where can people find you on social media or Insight Timer?
Yeah, my website is audiosoulhealing.com, and I also have that same handle on YouTube, and I believe also on Insight Timer, or you can search for my name here on the screen, Mathew, Jaidev, Duplessie. You'll find me on both of those. YouTube and Insight Timer are my two main social medias that I'm on currently.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you to the sponsor, Spreaker. Don't forget, get your free trial of Spreaker. If you want to get monetized on your podcasting platform, just click on the link in the description to get your free trial of Spreaker. Also, podcasts are out every Friday. So if you can, it would be very helpful if you could subscribe to the Stephen Shiels radio show so you can get notified when the new episodes are out. If you could share your favorite episodes on your social media to people that you know, that way more people can listen to the podcast. Also, if you like, you can send a donation to my GoFundMe page as well. This will help in supporting the costs to run the show.
If you're a busy parent, self-employed worker, creative, or even just someone who feels stuck in a rut for motivation, check out these guided planners and journals for personal success, motivation, and mental health. To start, Balanced Mind, a guided planner for the overly ambitious, under-motivated, and anyone in between, is a 52-week planner that walks you through a healthy approach towards organizing and prioritizing your goals. It has an excellent format for ensuring that health remains a manageable focus too. Also, if you're an artist, creative, or entrepreneur, the guided journal, My Terribly Great Das, the inspirational journal of 5 ideas a day inspired by Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret, will help you organize and stick to creativity by sticking to these 5 ideas a day for 90 days. You end up coming up with 450 ideas. One of those ideas will strike gold for sure. I'll provide the links in the show notes for these journals. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe to the author's email list to stay up to date on her new projects coming soon.